It's a good tuna, but I think I paid too much.
I always wear my mask and wash my hands after going home.
I am the king of the ring.
Welcome to the Japan What Podcast, episode 183. I am your host, Matthew P.M. Bigelow.com. And I'm coming at you from the Aizumicho Studios in Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan. Covering Japan Society 5.0, AI market trends, depopulation, migration, and rising conflict in the Indo-Pacific. And we thank you for coming to today's show, for tuning in here. Busy day as usual. Maybe I even over-prepared. I dare say so myself. I try to focus on the issues here in the Japan What Podcast, and that's what we're doing. We're going to go and do that. Let me just bring up my topic list here. Boom, there it is. All right, so I don't know what's going on in your world. Is everything fine and dandy? Are you kind of like feeling good about the state of everything? Like, hey, our trajectory's awesome. Or you're a little bit like me, kind of going, our trajectory is iffy at best. And I just say that so I don't sound too negative. Not to be a total party pooper. I still have fun every day with my family. But looking at what's going on, I don't know. How do you feel about it? Kind of weird, right? And uncertainty, I think, is rife. And I cover a lot of the technological trends here related to AI on the podcast, not because I'm some sort of enthusiast or I want to talk about how great ChatGPT is, even though it's pretty great. I view it as a transformation, and it's going to transform us whether we like it or not. And I was thinking about this kind of before the beginning of the show. Are we at the end of one cycle and the beginning of another? Like, is this what it kind of felt like to go from horses to automobiles? Like, imagine if you were somebody in the early 1900s and you bought a farm and like you bought 500 horses or something like that and 300 cattle. You bought all these beasts of labor and you're like, this is awesome. Boom, look at all these beasts. But then you're like, oh, this car is coming out. So you kind of transfer to the car, then the roads come. But, growing up in the 90s and 80s, all of that was very well established. But now are we replacing one thing with another thing again? So are we at the tail end of one cycle and the beginning of another? And that's why there's so much uncertainty, because even though we're kind of, barreling towards this future, I'm pretty sure the man who bought the oxen and replaced them with the car a few years later was probably not thinking like, oh, this is some part of international agreement by the elites that we're all going to become these societies. He was probably just like, this makes a certain economic sense. Yes, I will convert everything from my past into this new thing. So, as we engage with this technology more and more, most people aren't thinking about it. Like, I barely think about it this way. I was just thinking about it this way this morning in this like transformative aspect. Do we know what we're transforming into? Or are we just like, wow, look, it's convenient? Or not even that, because that's a little, that kind of talks down the issue to people. Like they can't fathom. Like I think most people know that we're moving into interesting, uncharted territory here. But I'm not sure if we appreciate the scale. Like we kind of think about ourselves as the main character, and our tools are our main character's tools that we use to do whatever we want with our movie that is called life. But if once you scale back or zoom out like on a map and you realize that there's, hundreds of millions and billions of people with the same new tools moving into this kind of new direction, we don't really know where it's leading to. And that's kind of this uncertainty perhaps. And another thing that I was comparing it to was with the beginning of radio or sonar and things like that. Admirals that would have the flagship, which was the flagship was the ship that would raise the different colors of the flags that would indicate to the other surrounding ships what maneuvers to do. Well, when sonar came out and people started just, transmitting that beep, 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 to each other, it was a much faster way. But the old admirals, didn't understand that technology, and they still wanted to use their fine use of flags. We are flagmen. Come to my flag. And they would disseminate their information that way. And they didn't. Maybe they realized they were on the cusp of something new. But sonar, then radar, and it moved on from there. And now we have AI satellites telling us everything. So there's this progression that we're not really sure what we're into. And are we in that right now? Are we on the edge of one thing and kind of testing the water, dipping our toe in the water before we make the leap to the next plank of the human evolution, the human story? Kind of a fake deep thought, but I'm not sure if that's some of the reasoning. Because you look at a lot of younger people, maybe people under the age of 30 who should be adults, but this technology is kind of infantilizing because it gives you what you want every time you need it from a mental perspective. And they seem like different people to me. I swear, the way that they engage and talk and communicate, it's highly different. It's on a new trajectory, a new scale. And when you think about like the 60s kids and the 70s kids and the 80s kids and the 90s kids, they each had their own fashion and their own music and in their own drugs or whatever. But it felt like it was a reaction to the previous thing. But if you're under 30, like these people haven't watched a movie without a smartphone, probably. They haven't put on an album and listened to the album. So everything is like a mishmash of technology that's delivered to them in real time, fed by algorithms. And I view it as a different kind of human almost. The software, the API, the interactions, how they interact with the rest of the world. And it extends up not only to young people, but older people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s may have joined this as well. But they know what they left behind. But the new generation has no idea what it's like to live without this technology. And we could say a tape and a CD and a record are all somewhat similar. They come in a package and you have to have a machine that plays them. It's very different from subscriber-based digital wireless transmissions that come into your phone. So with that in mind, let's take a look at what's going on in Japan. Japan has a new prime minister. His name is Mr. Ishiba, Prime Minister Ishiba, and he was elected a couple of days ago, or put into power. And so he's there. And he's kind of like this older dude. There's a whole bunch of weirdo competitive factions going on in Japan's political power structures. We're not going to talk about it too much because I'm not that interested. And as somebody who can't vote, as a foreigner in Japan, you can't vote. I'm not a natural citizen. I'm not a citizen. I don't want to spend too much time on these people. But they do decide a lot of what's going to happen and what's going to be happening in the future. And a lot of the other candidates were wearing the UN 2030 pins. They have strong connections to the World Economic Forum and all that is everywhere all the time these days. But I was wondering what was going to happen with the new administration's policy of new capitalism, because new capitalism is featured very frequently on the podcast, the Japan What podcast, because it fits in with Japan Society 5.0. It fits in with this cusp of one thing ending and another thing beginning, and it does all that. And I was wondering what this new LDP leader is, because in a way I was hoping it's like, we're going to throw it all away. We don't need it. I'd be like, oh, I feel so good about that. Because this encroaching new power structure almost feels like a cult. Like instead of just leaving one cult behind and being like, we're done with cults, it's like, it's time for the next cult. It's kind of how it feels like to me. But in this article from the Yomiuri Shimbun of the Japan News, it it states when was this published? We're recording this on October 2nd, 2024. This was published on September 28th, 2024. I'm not going to read all of it, just with this idea of new form of capitalism, new capitalism. In a press conference held on Friday following the LDP presidential election, Ishiba emphasized, quote, "We must solidify the hard work that President Kishida has done to overcome deflation." He also added, "I wish to further accelerate the new form of capitalism," advocated by the Prime Minister. A few weeks ago, I did a podcast with Justin Akema, a professor down in Osaka who focuses a lot on this, and we had a good conversation. We're like two men kind of with a blindfold half on, feeling the elephant from different sides of the elephant. And I'm like, oh, what's this big squishy thing, Ugh. And he's like, that's the summary of the podcast. And so I was wondering, is this going to continue? Because it's tied into Japan Society 5.0. It's tied into AI. It's tied into globalism in a big way, because it's a new form of capitalism. This new capitalism is just another word for stakeholder capitalism. And that's a World Economic Forum term, and it's well documented. I don't want to go too much into it. So it seems that new capitalism is going to be a part of the next administration. And I looked up the cabinet members and who's going to be in charge of this. And the person in charge of this is Junko Mihara. And she's a 60-year-old female. And this is what her list of ministerial in charge of are. She's the minister in charge of economic revitalization. She's the minister in charge of new capitalism. She's the minister in charge of improving wages. She's the minister in charge of startups. She's the minister in charge of social security reform. She's the minister in charge of infectious disease crisis management. She's the minister in charge of preparing for the establishment of disaster prevention agency. And she's the minister for economic and fiscal policy. So I would say somebody who's 60 years old is perfectly fine these days of handling a lot of technological matters. 70, it's pushing it. But if you were 60 and an early adopter and, was following Steve Jobs very intently and all that in the mid 80s, you could be in there, I don't think, with much of an issue. And you'd have a good grasp of the historical stepping stones that technology has led us from where it is there to where it is today and where it will lead us into the future. But it'd be better than having like just a 20-year-old millennial who's like, we need to make it less racist. And I don't want anything that has cables. No, it's much better than that. So if you're in charge of all of these things, you would think that you would have to be some sort of super genius. And luckily, that's exactly what we're dealing with here, is somebody who's totally qualified for the tasks at hand. This is from her Wikipedia page. Junko Mihara is a Japanese politician, and this is her history. She was formerly a singer, actress, and racing driver. She is a member of the Liberal Democratic Party. She made her debut as a teenager in a 1979 television series and began singing a career in 1980. Her first hit sold more than 300,000 copies. And in 1987, she began competing in auto racing. She drove a Toyota Corolla. That's what it says. So there we go. So that's the person who's a Japanese singer, actress, and racing driver is going to be in charge of new capitalism. How about that? That's like having the old flagship guy, in charge of sonar or whatever they were using, Morse code, whatever kind of new wireless transmission. That's not good. That's really not, that makes me, it's like, are you trying to radicalize me? I've been pretty radicalized sometimes in the past, not about everything, but certainly about some things, as I am sure you have as well. So that's going to be our, and then people would say, well, you can't because it's a woman. No, I'm not that dude. Could be anybody. Anybody could be doing this with the right leadership and the right historical context. But I'm not sure if this is the person in charge of startups, in charge of social security reform. So that's what's going on there. Just thought you'd like to know what Japan is doing. It doesn't seem very serious, does it? It doesn't seem very serious at all. That's kind of not serious. I don't really take that as something that serious people do. at all. So we're not going to be transferring into this new society. We're going to be running around in circles, maybe from the governmental perspective. But I have a lot of links today about that for more in-depth discussion later. And before we go into other things, it's weird how the Olympics have become just a nothing. It's just nothing. It's a big nothing. They don't broadcast on social media because they want to compete with the television networks to get the billions of dollars and then the advertising revenue and everything like that. But I don't remember the Olympics at all from this summer in Paris, except people swimming in the sewer infested, the dirty water, get puking. I remember that. I remember this weird occult imagery that was broadcast on Twitter for like a day on X, and that was it. I don't recall any athletes. I don't recall any amazing feats of athleticism. None of it. So Olympics are done. Top Japanese firms pull out from Olympic sponsorships. Tire giant Bridgestone Corp announced that it will end its contract with the International Olympic Committee at the end of the year, making it the last remaining Japanese company to withdraw from the games. Panasonic Holdings Corp and Toyota Motor Corp have already announced that they will also end their sponsorship contracts. Going forward, the company said it will focus on sustainable global motorsports activities, whatever that means. So there we go. It's over. I think the Olympics are done. They'll still continue to go on as some sort of pantomime. And everybody's like, well, you need to fund these sports and things like that. But you look at all the sports and they're very unusual and weird. Do we need to send hundreds of millions of dollars to water polo? Do we need to do that? No, we don't. All right, let's take a look. Well, that's the end of Japan kind of overview for today. And let's take a look at the next topic, which is the supply chain war.
Here we go.
On the Japan What podcast, the supply chain war takes a variety of meanings. Sometimes it's about the G7 versus the BRICS, that supply chain war, and China trying to establish a new hegemony, a global hegemony, using its wireless networks to facilitate payments between Chinese consumers and African producers, and then have Huawei help navigate Chinese-made AI ships through the world's shipping lanes, and then it's all controlled and monitored by the CCP, and trying to then use that payment system as a way to push the dollar out as the reserve currency. One of the ways in which that it would be used to push the U.S. dollar to the reserve currency, something like that. Other times it's about rising conflict in the Indo-Pacific. Because Japan is a G7 country. You come to Japan and it's very Asian, but the way that it's currently economically structured, it's very much in line with a place like Canada or the United States or England. Or, the people might be different, the religion might be different, and the cultures might be different, but the kind of the way that the society is structured economically is roughly in the same vein, and in all that, like what I mean. It's a G7 place, and then it's pushed up against China, and China is not, and Japan is adamantly in the G7. It's covered with U.S. military bases, and the banking systems are highly tied together as well. With that, we have pushed up against China, and China's trying to get itself out there. It's trying to kick the tires a bit on its newfound systems and go out and test for a while. So today we're going to take a look at the high seas, and this comes to us from Nikkei Asia, which is a globalist mouthpiece that just repeats whatever the global New World Order wants you to think. And it says, eyeing 20, a lot of this is the English division of the Nikkei. I wouldn't say the entire Nikkei is like this, but the Nikkei is often invited into Council of Foreign Relations meetings to report and so on. So it's establishment. Eyeing 2027 China threat, U.S. deploys laser-equipped ship to Japan. USS Preble is sole American destroyer with drone-defeating capability. Interesting, huh? So this ship has a laser on board. Now, I've been talking about using lasers as deterrents for quite a while on the Japan What podcast because China has been going around the South China Sea and running up into Vietnamese fishermen, ramming their boats, cutting off like a thumb. They've been kind of pushing into Malaysia, telling them to stop doing stuff down there. And the Philippines as well. I think the Philippines, they took the guy's thumb. But the Vietnamese, they've been kind of harassing a little bit, trying to take over more of the Vietnam's Vietnam's economic coastal zones. Kind of really being really kind of pushy. And I've been saying, well, if Japan can't equip its self-defense forces because of the declining population, and why should we go out and die for other countries? I'm not we Japanese, but why should the Japanese go and die for Taiwan? Why not just equip all of its islands with laser arrays and drones with missiles? And that way you could defend the islands on various measures of lethality. But the lasers I'm talking about aren't lethal lasers or lasers that can damage something. It's just really bright lasers where if you come too close to the island, it lights your ship up real good. And it's like, we don't call it defensive mechanisms. We call it friendly light show for interested visitors or something like that, and take videos of it and put it onto the internet to show how welcoming Japan is and how creative they are with their light technology. But today we have two laser stories. So I'm wondering if perhaps somebody's listening or not to the bad podcast. Sometimes we break into the top 50. We got into top number 6 once in Japan on the Apple charts there. A U.S. destroyer equipped with the latest laser weapon departed San Diego for Yokosuka, Japan on Sunday, just a days after the Navy released its annual navigation blueprint, which now focuses on readiness to combat China by 2027. The combat China by 2027, I think, is a American colonel or somewhere around there, maybe an admiral, maybe a general, who said that China might take Taiwan by 2027, so we have to be ready for that date, and that's kind of what it means. The USS Preble is the only vessel among 73 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers in the U.S. Navy carrying a high-energy laser weapon that could be used to shoot down drones and missiles, a Navy spokesman said. The Pebble operates Helios, high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance developed by Lockheed Martin. Helios remains in an at-sea testing phase and will continue testing as a forward-deployed unit, the spokesperson said. Shipboard lasers or directed energy weapons are expected to be crucial in future U.S. wars, especially against a swarm of drones and anti-ship missiles. The Navy's current method of shooting down drones is considered unsustainable, experts say, because it uses multi-million-dollar surface-to-air missiles to destroy inexpensive unmanned aerial devices, a cost imposition that becomes heavier as battle prolongs. As such is the case. Pretty interesting. So we're going to have laser wars in the Asia-Pacific now because of China. And another one that's kind of interesting is China warships shoots laser at BFAR aircraft. What? Oh, hold on. It's saying that it's forbidden. Oh, has the link been taken down? Let's just look at this. Oh my God. The link's been taken down. It says it's forbidden. Let's try this one. Has it been put behind a paywall now? Is that why it's not letting me in? Okay. This comes to us from Inquirer Plus. Take that for what it means. Chinese warship fires laser at BFAR aircraft. What's a BFAR? A Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, BFAR. Where's this coming to us from? Plane patrolling area near Hasa Shoal, only 111 kilometers off of Palawan, Philippines, is struck thrice with laser by Chinese Navy vessel, putting Filipino crew in danger. A Chinese Navy missile boat used a high-intensity laser 3 times against a Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources aircraft conducting a maritime surveillance over the West Philippine Sea, putting the Filipino crew in danger. When was this? October 1st, 2024. The incident took place midday Friday while a BFAR Cessna patrol aircraft spotted a Chinese Coast Guard vessel with the bow number 21555, that'll be on the test, and 2 Navy 22 Hubei-class missile boats chasing 2 BFAR vessels near Hasa-Hasa Shoal, a feature located just 111 kilometers off of Palawan, a major island in the Filipino archipelago there, according to a brief summary report. Moments later, one of the 2 Navy Chinese missiles boats shone a laser against the VFAR aircraft. The laser illuminated a high-intensity white light, causing discomfort to the pilot's eyes. The latest confrontation occurred a day after Filipino Navy completed a resupply mission to Anyang, the second Thomas Shoal, with no threat from Chinese vessels. It kind of goes on from there. And this just kind of goes into this idea where I've been talking about equipping lasers on things for a while now. A lot of people think it's crazy, and then the Japanese government, not in response to anything I'm saying, of course, but just looking at some of their papers, like, we will not have autonomous weapons, we will not engage in this type of activity. This is like the theme of the show is becoming like the old is in charge of the new in Japan still. And sometimes that's good, but if other people start going ahead with this and you don't, you get left behind. And then they will decide what happens to you. So my message to the SDF is, the Japan Self-Defense Forces, is to develop lasers as quickly as possible and put them on the islands and at least show rival nations that, yes, you are also preparing energy weapons for defense. It doesn't need to be a lethal one. It doesn't even need to be for drones. But the Chinese are shining these lasers into pilots' eyes. I'm saying that Japan should as well. I'm saying like it just distract, just like shine lasers all over the place, so it's hard to focus on what you're looking at because you have so many different colors and beams shooting all off everywhere and something like that. It's just like a distraction, more or less. Got to get on it because other people are. And anyways, so that's interesting. 2 laser ships in the Pacific now, China versus America. But Japan needs to also consider how to implement these technologies into its naval platforms. All right, next one. Let's take a look. What else is there? My son was keeping me up all night, so there's that. Oh, my pages are gone. That's why I hit the quit button. Jeez Louise, people. Who knows what's going on, huh? Who knows what's going on? Why are we doing this? Why are we cutting out programs? Next one. Crew of Vietnamese fishing boat injured in attack in the South China Sea, state media say. And America's trying to promise a lot of these nations, the Philippines and of course Japan and Vietnam especially, that, hey, we got your back. If China comes pushing you around, just contact us and we'll go in there and make sure that we keep the peace. But America doesn't. So I believe that China is using these kind of bully tactics maybe to try to drive a wedge between American alliances by saying to these countries, look, we keep going in here and like we're cutting off your thumbs and America's doing jack squat. So what are you going to do about it? I mean, can you trust these allies of yours? I mean, China's here. We want to work with you. Why don't you join BRICS? Why do you need this G7 thing? Have you seen Biden? Have you seen these people? Have you seen the clowns running America at the moment? It's a clown show every day. And then they come over to your country and say, we're going to monitor your elections and we're going to make sure you're doing democracy the right way. And then you take one peek behind the curtain of America and it's 1 billion clowns shoving their heads up each other's asses in a clown car that fits them all perfectly for some reason. That's what's going on. Crew of Vietnamese fishing boat injured in an attack in the South China Sea. A Vietnamese fishing boat was attacked near the Paracel Islands claimed by both China and Vietnam, and 10 crew members were injured. Vietnamese state media said Monday. The Vietnamese boat radioed Sunday to report the attack, saying 3 fishermen suffered broken limbs and 7 others received other injuries. It is not clear what country's boat attacked the Vietnamese vessel, and commune officials told the Associated Press they had nothing to add to the newspaper report. Vietnam's border guard is investigating the case but has not yet made any information available, and the Paracel Islands are about 400 kilometers off Vietnam's eastern coast and about the same distance from China's province of Hainan. Both countries claim them, as does the self-governing island of Taiwan. The newspaper report said the attack on the boat occurred in Vietnamese waters but did not specify exactly where it was. It kind of goes on from there. So Vietnam keeping their cards close to their chest, as they tend to do, and nobody really knows what's going on there either. But so we just have like China kind of going all over the South China Sea right now with their Coast Guard ships. If you remember, like 10 years ago, China released a new map with a 10-dash line, and it kind of claimed almost the entire South China Sea. And then it said, we have all of these new Coast Guard ships that will act as like a forward offensive fleets, if need be, to protect our waters. But I think what that translates as to protect its 10-dash line or 9-dash line in the South China Sea. And that's kind of what we're seeing more and more. So China is pushing forward and seeing who's going to push back, and also using this as an opportunity to highlight how ineffective America is at actually helping Asian nations deal with this issue in their territorial waters. I mean, if it's Israel or Ukraine or official NATO allies, America is right there all the time. But when it comes to Asia, it's kind of a one-way street a lot of the times, it seems to be, unless America responds appropriately. But I'm not sure if Kamala Harris or Joe Biden is going to take any measures in the next 3 days and be like, yes, Vietnam, we need to help them. You know, I just don't see it happening. So they're on their own. Let's take a look at Japan Society 5.0.
The fourth industrial revolution will enable us to create a new society. Artificial intelligence will transform the big data collected through the Internet of Things into new wisdom. Society 5.0, a technology-based, human-centered society.
No way.
The fourth industrial revolution will raise our standard of living and solve various challenges we face. It will, for example, free us from the stress of driving, allowing us to safely visit anyone, anytime.
Awesome.
We will have access to the latest medical advancements at a low cost, no matter where we are. AI and robots will enhance human ability and expand our infinite possibilities, helping us enjoy more fulfilling lives. Society 5.0, for the betterment of human lives.
Expand our infinite possibilities. So that's Japan Society 5.0. And going back to new capitalism and WEF talk, World Economic Forum talk, I always like to just say,
The fourth industrial revolution will...
The Fourth Industrial Revolution is a book written by Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum. And these people are kind of tight, and Japan likes being a part of this big club. It's a big club, and they're in it. So let's just kind of take a look here. There's always a mishmash of events going on with Japan Society 5.0, and I like to use it as an umbrella term for how various AI applications are being layered into the infrastructure surrounding us on a day-to-day level. Oftentimes, AI is whiz-bang or, wow, look at this. A lot of the times it's philosophical. I always say like there's the two sides of the AI coin that I don't really like to cover. Side one is the philosophical kind of catastrophist, defeatist view where it's like AI is going to be our friend at first, but then it's going to take our jobs before it sleeps with our wives, and it's just going to kill us. That's the one side. And then the other side is, wow, look at this AI program on my Apple device. If I write 2 + 2 on it with my finger, it knows what it means, and it says 4. Now I can finally do math on my device. And that's not really all of that transformative, although it does normalize it for the kids, which is a big part of this. I like to look at the infrastructural levels, especially regarding facial recognition, whether it's payments or locks, self-driving vehicles, because those are being implemented more and more, and that type of thing. How are these being implemented into the society around us, and how might that affect you and your family in the very near future? And we're going to jump around here quite a bit. I've done quite a bit of research for this segment today. And the first one is kind of interesting. This comes to us from the Asahi Shimbun Asia and Japan Watch on September 25th. And this is not a breaking news podcast, so I look at some recent things and I put them all together to kind of see where we are in a wider perspective, as opposed to reacting to the headlines that just come at us all the time on our devices. Japanese team finds 303 more Nazca geoglyphs through AI tech. Of course, the Nazca lines are those giant animals that are written into the rocks in South America, and nobody knows why they're there or how they would manage to write such giant things on rocks and mountainsides, because those people didn't have technology to see what was going on above them, or did they? But how could they make such straight lines and make such precise drawings over hundreds of meters and et cetera, et cetera? And for Japanese people tend to really like the Nazca lines. It's an international mystery, and if you don't like the Nazca lines, there's something wrong with you. Go get your head checked. The Nazca lines are amazing. They're awesome. It's a mystery. It's puzzling us all, and AI is being used to find even more of them. So let's take a look here. Yamagata University researchers announced on September 24th that they have uncovered 303 new geoglyphs in the Nazca Lines, a World Heritage Site in Peru, using AI. By the way, I've recently heard that some like dirt bike motorists tore up a few. Yep, there we go. Ha. Yeah, your technology versus ours. Who's going to win, sucker? In addition, they have apparently deciphered their meanings, depicting human sacrifices and serving as places for rituals. The findings mark the culmination of a 6-month field survey by the university, which researches these massive figures in the Peruvian desert. So far, 430 pieces of geoglyphs drawn about 2,000 years ago have been found. Of these, 318 were discovered by Yamagata University, which began investigating the subject in 2004. Previously, the university had identified geoglyphs from satellite images and other sources. Through a new joint research project with IBM Research using AI, 303 geoglyphs were newly identified between September 2022 and February 2023. Thanks to the new technology, the number of known geoglyphs has nearly doubled. The geoglyphs fall into two types, surface and line types. The 303 newly discovered geoglyphs are the surface type, in which stones have been removed to make figurines or figures. They are located along pathways and depict people, heads, and livestock. Masato Yasakai, a professor of cultural anthropology at Yamagata University, said the human heads depict human sacrifices to the gods. People at that time learned the roles of human sacrifice and livestock by looking at them while walking. The giant line types include the famed Nazca hummingbird geoglyphs. They are located at the starting and ending points of pilgrimage routes. It goes on from there. And I'm going to be linking to this article, or you can probably find some of this at MatthewPMBigelow.com as well. And so if you're interested in the Nazca lines, the reason why AI is good at this is because by looking at satellite imagery, you're looking at such vast expanses of Earth, and it might be difficult to identify a straight line. But by recognizing pixels, AI, essentially camera imagery, can find a straight line by identifying the pixels of the camera, of the photograph. So it'll find a straight line of pixels and say, wow, there's something here that's a straight line, and everything around it is not a straight line. So let's zoom in on that. And then it might use some kind of contrasting or some photo settings maybe to see if there's a pattern that emerges, and then it can identify something like that or not, or it might put it into a maybe list, and it sends that kind of potential findings up into the researchers' arms. So the researchers don't need to be poring over every single image, maybe missing a line, but you might find one, but you might not, or you might think it's something, but you don't have the pixelization of the photo like a computer does. And so the computer can recognize how the pixels are oriented in a photograph once it's digitized. It's very interesting, isn't it? Next one. Go away, ad. Government of Tokyo launches AI dating app to match couples and boost births. I'm sorry. The Tokyo government has launched a new dating app for smartphones that uses artificial intelligence to match people who are serious about marriage based on their values. Tokyo Emusubi, meaning Tokyo Matchmaking, is available for people over 18 who live in or commute to the Japanese capital. Users undergo an online interview upon registration, and they also must submit photo identification and documents proving their income and that they are legally single to ensure security on the platform. This is how romantic it is. The move is a part of a broader efforts to boost Japan's declining birth rate, and the Tokyo metropolitan government aims to provide support to singles and families at various stages in their lives, from initial meeting to marriage, childbirth, and child rearing. It kind of goes on from there. And you have to pay 11,000 yen or $77 for a membership of 2 years. And this AI technology will apparently suggest love interests based on an assessment of 110 questions. There are many people who want to get married but have not actively pursued relationships, and metropolitan government officials said, "We want to help encourage them to take the first step." Yeah, imagine doing that. I'm not, what about the gay one, the grinder? It's like, that thing is just finding people who want to bang all the time. You don't need all this extra stuff in there. I wonder why the government's done this. It's highly suspect. I don't know what they're up to, but it's something. Something is definitely up. Next one. Let's take a look at the next one. With the idea of this next wave of technology coming in, and we're still in the mindset of the current wave of technology. For example, cars. We might have, the classic would be in Japan having domestically produced cars like Toyota, Mazda, Daihatsu, and the like, and putting tariffs on importing them from, say, Germany with BMW or America with Ford. And it's like this product kind of enters your country, you pay a little bit more for it, and then you get it, but it's basically the same. But with the new bevy of technology installed into electric cars, for example, all the cameras and the sensors and the connectivity and all of that, if you import 10,000 BYD Chinese electric vehicles into your country, does that mean you now have essentially a spy network for China just operating around your country willy-nilly? You don't even realize it because you haven't thought about that, because you're the old captain in the ship with the flags while everyone else around you is using WhatsApp. When security research, this is from Wired from a few days ago, so it's not necessarily about Japan specifically, but I've been talking about Chinese e-cars in Japan, and maybe that's why some other countries might be very paranoid about letting such technology into their country. So if you're China and you're like, hey, we don't want anything except Tesla, we don't need anything else, maybe it's because they're up to something. Maybe they're not just being protective. They know how the technology can be used to essentially operate as a spy network. Then you don't need to have, honey traps and sex operatives from China wandering through American political spheres. You just have the cars monitor everything. We even put microphones in there. When security researchers in the past found ways to hijack vehicles' internet-connected systems, their proof-of-concept demonstrations tended to show, thankfully, that hacking cars is hard. Exploits like the one that hackers used to remotely take over a Chevrolet Impala in 2010 or a Jeep in 2015 took years of work to develop and on so far. This summer, one small group of hackers demonstrated a technique to hack and track millions of vehicles that's considerably easy as finding a simple bug in a website. Today, a group of independent security researchers revealed that they'd found a flaw in a web portal operated by the car maker Kia that let the researchers reassign control of the internet-connected features of most modern Kia vehicles. Dozens of models representing millions of cars on the road, from the smartphone of a car's owner to the hacker's own phone or computer. By exploiting that vulnerability and building their own custom app to send commands to target cars, they were able to scan virtually any internet-connected Kia's vehicle license plate and within seconds gain the ability to track that car's location, unlock the car, honk its horn, or start its ignition at will. I'll be linking to this at MatthewPMBigelow.com, by the way. And you can also send us a donation via PayPal at paypal.me/JapanWUT. That's paypal.me/JapanWUT. After the researchers alerted Kia to the problem in June, Kia appears to have fixed the vulnerability in its web portal, although it told Wired at the time that it was still investigating the group's findings and hasn't responded to Wired's email since then. But Kia's patch is far from the end of the car industry's web-based security problems, blah, blah, blah. So what if these are done by, these are obviously white hackers or gray hats or white hats. What if it's an entire country? And they're just waiting, like with the pagers that Israel blew up in Lebanon with the Hezbollah. You're just waiting on it. What if you also get control of those smartphones that people have, and now you have their web histories and you can identify who they are politically? Now you can divide people like that. That's a big concern of the future, is it not? This next one is very interesting. This as well as developed by China. China's wireless moves these days are crazy. Their drone displays of you see 10,000. I've been following this stuff for the past 10 years. I worked in the telecoms industry researching this in Japan for 5 years, 2015 to 2020. It's now 2024, unbelievably so. But this could be totally dual use. What if you have a drone display and it's showing this awesome, 10,000 drones doing all these acrobatic tricks and making dragons and people and messages in the sky? What if they're dual use? What if they're fitted with explosives and facial recognition technology? You could have 5 of them, sheep's and wolves in sheep's clothing. They identify somebody in the crowd that's a political enemy and boom, take them out. Boom. It's over. It's done. Or what if you use these drone networks, these drone displays, to hack a municipal 5G network and take over an entire city's telecommunication system? What about that? I've seen drones hack other drones 10 years ago. This is very possible. So one of these major shortfalls, though, of drones is the fact that they have such low battery life. But this new one from China overcomes that in many ways. This comes to us from X, and it's by the account AI Safety Memes. And it says, AI not kill very one-ism memes. So it's kind of a joke account, but is it? These autonomous drones sit on power lines to recharge, allowing them to fly indefinitely, no humans required. Xiaomi, which is a Chinese company, cell phone company originally, Xiaomi's new factories are 100% autonomous and self-improving, and there are no humans working there anymore. Why this matters. Skeptics say we can just unplug them, but soon this new alien species will be fully autonomous, no humans needed. Nearly everything needed will be run by AIs that outnumber us 1 million to 1. We will not be truly able to supervise the AIs that are running these factories and everything else because we'll be too dumb and slow to keep up. Just like the flag people in those ships, I'm going to narrate this video. So I'm looking at this video from this link, and it shows quite a big quadcopter drone. And it has a clamp on the top of it, and it simply flies up, and it goes under a power line, and it clamps onto the power line, and it uses this to charge the battery. And it shows the battery being charged and the voltage being charged, and how much juice is off the line is coming into the battery. And then once the battery is charged off of this line, it removes itself and keeps on going. So it flies and it recharges and it flies and it recharges and it flies and it recharges again and again and again. So you could have basically forward operating bases of these types of drones that go into sparsely populated areas and maintain a continual presence there by siphoning off the power grid. Fascinating idea, right? But if you're not developing this stuff, what are you doing? Well, you're the flag person. You're the race car driver who's in charge of new capitalism. I wonder if they put a race car driver in charge of these types of things in China. I wonder if they do that. It seems to be I'm not sure. I wonder if they do that. Hey, you used to drive a race car. Yes. Well, why don't you be in charge of new capitalism? Yeah, that's the natural progression of things, obviously. Moving on to the next topic. This comes to us from Miyazaki. And this is using development of pig weight estimation technology using cable-mounted moving camera and AI. I'm not going to go too much into this. It's quite a long article, but I just thought this was actually a very unique and Japanese solution where basically a robot on a rope it goes around development of a device that uses a cable-mounted camera and AI to patrol pig barns and automatically collect information on weight distribution of pigs. This device operates autonomously, patrolling the pig barn multiple times a day and measuring the weight distribution of each section in which the pigs are raised. With a small number of devices, it is possible to cover the entire pig barn and grasp the daily growth status of the many pigs being raised. The camera moves silently along the cable and does not stimulate or bother the pigs. This is translated from Japanese to English. Allowing for stress-free observation. This system applies the technology of glasses invented by Professor Kawasue Kikuhito of the Miyazaki University that show the weight of pigs and enables highly accurate estimation of pig weight. In a current situation where the number of pig farmers is decreasing while the number of pigs per household is increasing, this automatic observation device has the potential to reduce the amount of labor required at pig farms and significantly change the way pig farms are run in the future. Miyazaki University will continue to work with companies and others to return the results of its research to society. Nippon Ham, a co-developer of the device, will be making the device available to the public at J-Agri, Japan's largest agricultural and livestock exhibition, which will be held at the Makuhari Messe from October 9th to 11th. So please come and visit. I might go if I can. That'd be fascinating. So there we go. So this is just a very simple device, and when we look at like the bureaucratic level and how it ties into the social development goals. What does SDGs mean? I always forget the S. SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and then ESG, Environmental, Social, and Governance. There we go. So SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. It's all kind of abstract, but once we get down to like the grassroots level of things, it's very simplistic, and it just solves a problem. Weighing pigs might take a long time if you wanted to do it manually, but by having a camera monitor how big a pig is, and this is well established. If you know the size of a pig, you could probably fathom its weight with a reasonable degree of accuracy. Why not do it that way? Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me indeed. All right, boom, boom. What's the next one? In an age where AI can find lost items, the burden on commercial facilities has been reduced to the point that I don't want to do it with paper anymore. So this is, of course, a Japanese headline. You know that because it's way too long. This comes to us from Yahoo News, translated into English via Google. I do a lot of the research for this in Japanese, by the way, and compile lists. So you get it here and really nowhere else. And notice how it's when it becomes factual and pointed and accurately determined as to what is going on with AI, you have like a way clearer understanding, as opposed to like, it's going to come and screw my wife and then kill me. And then we're going to push 2 + 2 on our devices. It's going to say 4. It's like that's such a weird way to interpret this stuff when it's obviously going on all around us. A commercial facility at Hakata Station, that would be in Kyushu, has introduced a new management system that utilizes AI. Umbrellas and smartphones and other lost items arrive one after another at these major stations. They say that there are about 300 lost items per month, but now AI will look for those lost items. My Ing at Hakata Station sells all kinds of souvenirs from Kyushu. Some people may have been distracted by all the delicious-looking souvenirs and accidentally dropped or forgotten something. 7 lost items, including umbrellas and earphones, had already been delivered to the security room when our journalists visited that day. Lost items. Lost items continued to arrive during the interview. Among them was a credit card. But they used a new feature where instead of having a staff member input all of the information, like the size of the phone, the color of the phone, the type of phone, what type of item is being lost, a credit card or earrings or a bag or something like that. AI imagery will analyze the image. And then the security guard who receives the item pointed his smartphone at something, and it said front, back on the tag, the size, where it's from. It says Korea. This commercial facility introduced a management system that utilizes AI in August. When you take a few pictures of the lost item, AI will analyze the brand, color, features, etc., and the information will be registered on the app automatically. This is image to text, basically. When the security guard who receives the inquiry enters keywords such as handkerchief or other various things to search, it will instantly display candidates from the registered information. Significant reduction in work that we don't want to do on paper anymore. Compared to the past when information was written on paper and items were searched through a large number of files, the work of the facility has been significantly reduced. Security guard said, excuse me, until now we captured the features on paper and recorded the detailed information in a ledger. It's not impossible to do on paper, but we don't want to do it. Yeah, good. So just like the last item, it just takes pictures, inputs the data. Somebody comes, I lost this. You input some keywords, shows basically a web search result and images. That's the one I need. And then it just comes back to you. That's instead of having ledgers and paperwork, then they have to go get it, then they have to confirm and blah, blah, blah. All right, next one. Let's take a look at Singapore, because this is going around all around Asia. And depending on where another country is, you can kind of predict if you're going to be going there as well. Singapore to implement facial recognition for online banking. Now, I thought this one, this headline's a little deceiving. And, I don't know why, because it could be 50 times as long, because it's from a Japanese website, Nihon Nikkei Shimbun. The Japanese Nikkei is a lot more trustworthy than the English Nikkei, I've found. I get a lot less globalist talking points from the Japanese one, but the English one is like crazy. It's crazy. The Monetary Authority of Singapore and the Association of Banks in Singapore announced on September 18th that they will require customers to use facial recognition technology to prevent fraud when conducting online banking transactions. I'm going to repeat that. People will be required. The authorities will require customers to use facial recognition technology. According to the joint statement, major banks offering consumer services will be required to introduce facial recognition systems within the next 3 months and will check the registration information of public authentication systems when setting up digital tokens. Digital tokens can be used to log into banking apps and make transactions. So, Singapore has to have a heavy hand on the law. It must, in order to function. Singapore is a hodgepodge of various cultures. Malay, Chinese, Indian, a significant kind of a Western influence. There's so many people from so many different cultures that unless you have a very heavy-handed approach, you're going to find a lot of people finding loopholes, or they're going to find a lot of people disrespecting the rules. In a homogenous society like Japan, you don't really need so much. Like there's signs in Japan that say you can't bike here, don't bike here. People are biking there and there's no problem. But in Singapore, it says if you bike here, you will pay $1,000 fine. They'll do that to you. Guess what? Nobody bikes there. So I'm wondering if Singapore is implementing this because it has such a high reputation as a financial hub, and they might not want to risk becoming known as like a fraudulent cesspit of online banking activity. So in order to make things more secure and hold the reputation up in line with what it should be in their image, they're requiring everybody to use facial recognitions to do online banking. Does that mean that you have to like take a picture with your webcam? Does that mean you have to take a picture with your smartphone? It doesn't, after a while, it becomes somewhat less convenient to do all this stuff at home all the time. And it becomes more and more. Like, how many times do you ever go to a bank? And it's something for very serious reasons, usually. I don't mean withdrawing money. But now with all of this internet banking and apps and fintech, it's like sending you the passcode. Please update the passcode. Now, please go here. Please update the app. We're going to need your phone number now. We're going to send you the code to the phone. And now you have to implement that code. And is it just going to continue on from there? And this is to do stuff like maybe transfer some money from one account to another account. It's not a major thing. But the amount of like just, it's a new type of paperwork, isn't it? It's just a new type of paperwork. And you have to skitter through your technology, copying and pasting and pushing OK to various things just so that you can transfer your money to your account. So I'm not sure what I think about this. I think I'm kind of getting sick of it, to be honest. I like it when it's simple. It's just my thing, my password. Maybe a secondary password is fine enough for me. But this layering on, and then you have to have the app, which has its own security measures. It's becoming arduous, in my opinion. So I hope Japan does not go down this road, but I can understand why Singapore is. In the same vein, WorldCoin, this comes to us from bitcoin.com, from Japanese language originally. WorldCoin introduces facial recognition feature and launches in Guatemala, Poland, and Malaysia. WorldCoin has expanded orb verification to Guatemala, Poland, and Malaysia amid a wave of concerns about the dangers of AI and the difficulty of distinguishing bots from humans online. The organization also unveiled a new technology called FaceAuth that allows apps to verify whether a previously registered person is using a world identification. WorldCoin, a biometrics-based identity project, has unveiled a new authentication technology as part of its World ID app. Doesn't it sound like Orwellian to the max? Like I'm reading this kind of going like, did Orwell write this and not publish it? On Wednesday, the project announced that it had launched orb verification, an iris scanning opportunity in 3 countries, the ones listed, Guatemala, Poland, and Malaysia. Together, finally, at last, in the same paragraph. The organization explained that this expansion comes in response to a diverse set of surveys that have shown concerns about having tools to distinguish between humans and machines. Similarly, 84% of people in this survey are concerned about the capabilities of current AI models, which they say make it very difficult to distinguish bots from humans. Okay, so this is a Japanese website, and it tends to repeat itself over and over and over again. WorldCoin recently violated data privacy laws in South Korea and was forced to pay a fine of $800,000. So we kind of have like this surveillance creep coming in on the back of payments and things like that. And that's really where it's coming in. Creeps me out. Next, Sony and Raspberry Pi jointly develop AI camera. This is kind of an interesting idea. I've thought about getting my son a Raspberry Pi. Just like a cheap little mini computer, and you have to kind of code it and fix it up yourself, and maybe it has some sort of Linux application. Sounds like a good thing to do, but they're also including an AI camera into it. So this is going to be used by AI developers, and if you have your own little business and you want to have some sort of individualized AI camera to suit your needs instead of having to go through AWS or some sort of company offering services and subscriptions and things like that, this might be the right thing for you. I'm not going to read too much into it. I just thought it was interesting that Sony and Raspberry Pi are jointly developing an AI camera. Go to MatthewPMBigelow.com for all these links, by the way, and maybe think about making a donation at paypal.me/JapanWUT. Japan Bus Association aims for autonomous driving and cashless payments by 2030. September 26, 2024. The bus industry, which is facing major issues such as a shortage of drivers, has put together a policy for the future. The Japan Bus Association aims to fully introduce autonomous driving and cashless payments by 2030. This is a very... Chairman of the Japan Bus Association said, "We want to do whatever we can to maintain buses. In order to maintain the bus industry a fulfilling industry, we need to make the next generation bus a reality." All right. Thank you. I think a lot of elderly people in Japan are going to go for this, by the way. I think they're tired. They're always in their masks anyways. They've given up. It's crazy watching this older generation. They got whacked by COVID so hard. And I mean, like the information campaigns, they got hit pretty hard by the virus itself too. But the lingering effect of the psychological reaction and shutting everything down, these people grew up in like the 60s, like in their childhoods. And that was a wild time. You look at these festivals that were going on in Japan in the 60s, it's like 4-year-olds climbing up the sides of towers, doing flips. And now they're just in their mask, alone in a car, being driven to a rehabilitation center where they sit in a chair underneath fluorescent lights next to some other person in the exact same situation and not talk to each other, just waiting to die. They're really going out on a sour note, man. I hope our generation doesn't go out like that, but it might. But I'm 44, and I'm looking at these people going, you really just did give up, didn't you? You could have. You're soft. There's this old folks facility that I walk past every day, taking my kids to preschool, and it looks very depressing inside. Everybody's in masks. It's very sanitized, and it's very fluorescent lighting. Everyone's sitting on kind of folding chairs with office-style white folding desks. Everything's white inside. Very sanitary, very sanitized, but it's not comfortable at all. Like when I'm in my 80s, I want to be in a like plush chair next to a fire. I want there to be like a lot of wood and drapes and things like that. I don't want this outcome, not at all. But these people have chosen it. This is the way that they've decided to go. And I was thinking about the people that work there, and I was in a fake Q&A. It's like, well, why do you like working here? And the person would reply, "It's a great way to meet new people. You meet a lot of new faces here." Meaning, they're dying a lot. Next topic. Will autonomous driving service begins full operation at Osaka International Airport, Itami Airport. This comes to us from prtimes.jp. And I think Will is a wheelchair service, and it's an autonomous wheelchair. I've seen these at the Keio Hospital where I live near, and you go in and it's a self-driving wheelchair, and it's sitting or positioned next to a giant display, and you sit in the wheelchair, and the display has a map of the hospital, and it has certain points where you can get on and get off, and you hit the display on the map where you want to go, and the wheelchair will drive you there. And it plays a little song, and it lets people know that there's a driverless wheelchair coming. And that's that. It's a very simple technique, and you don't need too many things. And it's not like there's a lot of various activities at airports. People in airports or hospitals are going from a point A to point B, generally speaking. It's very different from like a busy residential neighborhood filled with tower blocks or something like that, where you just so much random activity, humans coming and going at all times of day for various reasons. So this type of technology makes sense there. And instead of having to wait for staff to come drive an elderly person from point A to point B, or to have some sort of, care network in place of professionals, you just sit in the chair, push the button, the wheelchair takes you to where you need to go, and then you get off and do your thing. So I'm not going to read it. Well, I'll be having some pictures of it, though, at MatthewPMBigelow.com. Next one, from aismiley.co.jp. NX Group and GrooveNots use optimization technology to automate air freight consolidation operations, aiming for a 25% reduction in 5 years. NX Group And Groovenauts have begun a demonstration experiment. What I just said. This is Japanese websites and news. I don't know why they repeat the same sentence like 7 times in the first 7 paragraphs. It drives me nuts. I don't know why they do it though. I don't know why the Japanese people don't revolt, but they must like just say, "Oh yes, let's read that again." So these 2 companies, which have strength in utilizing AI and quantum technology, have begun a demonstration experiment aimed at automating the consolidation of air cargo. It's improve accuracy by preventing human error. In the mixed loading process, which combines multiple customers' cargo for each destination and prepares it for loading onto an aircraft before shipping it, it is necessary to take into consideration the size and characteristics of the cargo, arrival date, and other conditions, which requires advanced knowledge and experience. Furthermore, while there is a labor shortage throughout the logistics industry and the need for efficiency is growing, the need for a situational judgment makes it difficult to automate the process. In March 2024, the NX Group signed a capital and business alliance agreement with Groovenauts. And through this partnership, the 2 companies will utilize Magellan blocks, which has strengths in combining combinatorial optimization and mathematical optimization to conduct verification tests aimed at automating the mixed loading and unloading of air cargo, which has been considered difficult to achieve until now. I'll be posting a picture of their system at MatthewPMBigelow.com. You can also make a donation at paypal.me/JapanWUT. In addition, the 2 companies have begun verifying mixed loading and using optimization technology with sample data, organizing business processes by limiting lanes and cargo types from May 2024. It kind of goes on from there. This is just another example of how I've been talking about this lately. This new wave of technology is passive. You don't notice it. You notice when an atomic bomb goes off in 1945. Boom. That's an announcement. You'll notice in the early 1900s when airplanes start flying over your town or Zeppelins come do transatlantic flights and start hooking up onto your newly made skyscraper buildings. You begin to notice things like you notice when people start using iPads and iPhones all the time. But this new technology is just passive. It's just a camera in a hole in the wall. And now it's optimizing luggage by having AI conveyor belts probably separate the luggage and combine the luggage and then separate the luggage again. And you won't even notice that it's there because it's just luggage going down a luggage rack. But there it is. You don't notice it. That's why people don't talk about it. You don't notice it. I think this is the last one. Yes, last one for today. Japan's first ChatGPT-based conversational golf AI device, Birdie Talk, is released. AI provides comprehensive support for your game. So this is an AI device for your golf. SourceNet Corporation released the conversational golf AI device, Birdie Talk, on September 18th. It is sold on its website, various sales sites, electronics retailers, and golf retailers nationwide, and can be used at over 2,300 golf courses across Japan. Birdie Talk is the first IoT product in Japan that uses ChatGPT to provide voice advice for golf. It can resolve any doubts or questions you may have on the spot, from how to hit the ball according to the situation to how to deal with problems and rules. So you just attach this device to your cap, ask a question, and then it answers you. Kore doutsu. And then the AI answers. For example, while playing, you can simply press a button and say something like, I can hit the ball well at the practice range, but not so well in the real thing. Or I can't consistently break 100. And the AI will provide advice based on golf theory supervised by the University of Tokyo Golf Club. In addition, you can hear the number of remaining yards needed to implement a strategy for conquering the course. And by simply verbalizing the club used and results of the shot, the system will analyze the distance traveled by each club and tendency for errors. The analyzed results can be viewed through a dedicated app, and the more data you accumulate, the more accurately you can understand your own habits, which will help you improve your score even further. Birdie Talk was pre-sold on the support purchase site Makuake from June 20th, 2024 to August 22nd, 2024, and received support purchases of over 14 million yen, far exceeding the target amount. With this official launch, it is hoped that Birdie Talk will help users improve their golf game, which is considered a lifelong sport, and encourage many users to continue playing. There we go. I'm not sure how this works. I'll be including it, of course, as a link on MatthewPMBigelow.com, but I just thought that was a very positive note to end on where, yeah, we have this idea where is ChatGPT going to take your job, or is it just going to help you with your golf game, apparently? Or is it going to convince you to buy a device to stick on your hat? Because we have devices in our hands, we have devices on our wrists, but we don't really have enough devices on our hats. So maybe this is like an untapped market for the IoT world, utilizing ChatGPT as a well-understood brand name by now to convince people that they need a golfing assistant to travel with them at every time. I don't know if this thing is taking pictures. I don't know much about it, but I'll be including the details at MatthewPMBigelow.com. So that's going to be, let's tap out of that.
The fourth industrial revolution will enable us to create a new society. Artificial intelligence will transform the big data collected through the Internet of Things into new wisdom. Society 5.0, a technology-based, human-centered society. Industrial
all right, that's going to wrap it up for today. So thank you for listening to all of that. Pretty interesting, isn't it? Oh, actually, I'll be including a song for the end of the show here. And I'm using this website called suno.com. And I have all of the notes converted into lyrics. And then I put that into suno.com and it makes a song based on today's podcast to kind of review on the way out. So I'm going to leave you with that. So thank you for listening, everybody, to today's podcast. You found it, the Japan What Podcast, coming at you from the Aizumicho Studios in Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan. Until next time, I bid thee a super great ja mata.
I am 27, a looming threat from the east. US deploys a ship with lasers, not for peace. In the South China Sea, lasers cut through the night. Crew injured, the shadows of conflict take flight. A Vietnamese boat in the seaside war, fishing for peace, caught in the Japan What Podcast. Supply chain stretched in a war we seldom see. Lasers and warships in the shadow of the sea. Nation against nation, a game of high stakes. In the chess of power, where each move breaks. On Japan What AI, find secrets in the sand. Nazca lines work lives by AI's hand. Tokyo's AI plays Cupid, seeking love's rebirth. While vehicles hacked question privacy's worth. Drones hum along power lines, texting dawn. Pigs weighed by AI, in farms they're drawn. Military might with AI's cold embrace. Finding lost items on Japan What Podcast. Recognition in banks, a digital nod. World's coins face scanning, new lands trod. Sony and an AI camera in sight. Autonomous buses by 2030, cashless alight. AI was the birdie talk on green, so fair. Golfing with tech in the conversational air. Optimization in skies, freight flies with ease. This group's vision on Japan What Podcast. From lasers at sea to AI's guiding hand. Society 5.0, where tech meets the land. A world reshaped by code and by might. In this dance of tech, where day meets night. That was on the Japan What